This might be the biggest investing mistake I ever make. And you're going to watch me do it and document it on this channel. Welcome back, guys. Today we're breaking down a $10,000 investment, which might sound insane to do for a YouTube channel, and it is, but I think it'd be really interesting for a number of reasons. My plan is to put $1,000 split between 10 high-yielding, no NAV erosion income ETFs. Now, I need your help for a number of things. In order to do this, I'm going to set some parameters for this video that we have to reach for me to invest $10,000. I mean, it's $10,000, guys. I got to set some parameters. And number two, I need your help deciding because there are a lot of good options, and we're going to cover all of that in this video and more. Lastly, my reasoning for this style of investment, for this style of content, is I want to see how much money you can actually make by doing this through dividends, through the growth, and how the actual portfolio is impacted by market fluctuations, going up, going down, and so on. So I'm going to give you some more details, but I do hope you enjoy. We're going to start by giving a brief overview of each of these funds, and then we're going to break them into specific categories based off their underlying asset. And that's where I'm going to really make my selections. So I have in my head a couple that I'm sure are already going to go in, but I do need your help on a number of things. First, I want to know exactly if you're interested in this content. I need to know, and if you like the video, if you're subscribing from this, if you're commenting, it helps me understand if this is actually going to be worth it, because it is a large investment. It's a lot of money, and I plan on holding it for quite a long time. Now, that being said, I also need your help selecting these funds because I want to be well enough diversified, but I don't want to be too heavy into just one underlying. I don't want to be too heavy into one specific issuer, which we might be with NEOS. We'll see how this comes out in the end. But let's be honest. NEOS has some phenomenal funds. And last, I want this video to get 1,000 likes. That would be absolutely amazing. We've done it before. It's been a little bit of time, but if you guys can help me out with that, that would be amazing. And it boosts me and helps me do stuff like this on the channel. So starting off, we're going to give, again, pretty brief, XQQI. It's a new NEOS boosted income ETF, 1.5x returns on the underlying QQQI. So we have an AUM that's low. Distribution rate is going to be like 20 to 26%, and it's a NASDAQ 100 ETF. Then we have XSPI, same exact thing, but the S&P 500. So the SPYI is the underlying, a little bit smaller, a little bit lower yield. I'm guessing it's going to be, this is a little more realistic, maybe 18 to 24% with that 1.5x. S&P 500 underlying. So you can see really quickly how there's a lot of NASDAQ and S&P funds. I did leave a couple out of here because I'm already invested in them in another challenge, but I'll touch on that later on. XBCI. We have the NEOS boosted high income ETF on Bitcoin. Same thing. It's like BTCI, but with 1.5x leverage. It's new. It's small. It's going to yield like 36 to 42%, something like that. Underlying is Bitcoin. I'm only going to do one Bitcoin and one ETH ETF because I don't want two tied into Bitcoin and I don't want two tied into Ethereum because I do think they could come down another 15 to 20%. I'm just being honest. MLPI is probably one of my favorite NEOS ETFs. I bought it a little bit ago, but I might have to buy it again. And that is because it's an energy energy and MLP ETF. So they have a bunch of energy ETFs, stocks, I should say. They have MLPs, but you don't have to do the annoying K1 form that you do when you own these limited partnerships outright. It's a little bit bigger, 236 million in AUM already. It's got about a 15.5%, 16% yield. And again, it's energy as the underlying. IWMI, this is the Russell 2000 high income ETF. It is not leveraged. They went with 3 other leveraged options, but they didn't want to do a leveraged version of IWMI, which makes sense. It's a little bit less popular. Not a little bit. It's a lot less popular. It's going to be Russell 2000 exposure. It's got 600 million in AUM and it yields about 14% and has been booming recently. I'm going to throw a couple of these together. We're going to do each underlying on charts, and I'll group some of them up that don't have another one with the same underlying, and I want to show that with IWMI. Then we have NEHI. This is like BTCI, but with Ethereum. Again, this one's not leveraged. Synthetic calls and synthetic exposure, I should say, via calls with options, going to generate income, and it's smaller, 25 million, but it distributes insanely high because Ethereum is a very volatile asset, probably the most volatile on this list. And I wanted it in there because I don't own Ethereum. I do own a little bit. I don't own a lot in my retirement account. So I want to put some in there and just track it because this is all going to be in my Roth IRA. Or, I mean, I want your opinion. Pause. If I move this money out of my Roth, or I shouldn't say move it out of my Roth, if I shift it into a new account, one thing I can do is I can then track the taxes at the end of the year. Is that something you would be interested in seeing? My goodness, it's a huge commitment, but maybe we can get there. Let me know if that's something that's really useful to you, because some of these have more tax advantages than others. Then we have GPIQ. We have our first overlap. This is the NASDAQ 100 Premium Income ETF, and it's different from QQQI. I just did a video on these, so I'm not going to go too far into it, but it's a unique fund. They have a different strategy. It's $3 billion in AUM, yielding a little under 10%. NASDAQ 100. GPIX is same thing, but on the S&P. Same thing, 3 billion, 3.1 billion, a little bit more than GPIQ. A little lower yield because the NASDAQ has more volatility than the S&P, and S&P is the underlying. Now we're getting to some new territory, right? So we have KGLD and KSLV. These are gold and silver monthly paying income ETFs. It's synthetic gold exposure with options for both of these, which I like and I don't like. I'm okay with a little more exposure to both gold and silver silver has a crazy yield, right? A 12+% yield because of the fact that silver is more volatile. Gold is a little bit lower, and I do already have a lot of gold in the portfolio. So I'm debating removing one or both of these and swapping them out with something else. So those are the first 10 that I thought of including. Then we have NIHI, which is, I think, a really good idea because you're actually able to get completely different exposure. You have international exposure, which none of the other ones have. And international has been doing really well. It pays 12%, a little more than that based on the last distribution, 134 million in AUM. Last but not least, we have JEPI. This is an S&P fund, JEPI, probably one of the most popular, lower yielding, and it has ELNs, which is exchange-linked notes. More tied to banking, stifles the yield a little bit, but is safer outside of a banking crisis. And we have JEPQ, the exact same thing, but on the NASDAQ. Yields are not lackluster. They're close to GPIQ and GPIX, but they do typically underperform, which we'll see in just a moment. So those are it's actually only 13 because the first row is the ticker and whatnot. Those are the 13 I have selected as potential options. If you have any suggestions, throw them in the comments. If you have a suggestion on, let's see, I would love something that's under a different sector, different asset class. So please don't just throw a bunch of S&P and NASDAQ funds in there unless they're really good, because I want to get some uniqueness into this portfolio. And I'm happy to do ETFs that are not well known. I'm definitely okay with that. And I'm okay with even shifting away from NEOS a little bit, which is why I didn't do IAUI or IYRI, which is also a decent option. We could put that on the list as well. They're real estate ETF. So that's segment one. We're going to go through, we're going to look at each of these, how they compare, and I want your help to select these ETFs. Of course, we have to start with the NASDAQ, one of my favorite underlyings, and we have QQQI, GPIQ, and JEPQ. I just did a video on this, so we're not going to go too far into the details, but realistically, I don't think I'm going to do JEPQ. The reasoning behind that is total return. It's a little bit lackluster, and the only way I see it outperforming the others is if we are in a prolonged sideways market. Not sideways, my apologies. If we are in a prolonged down market. So unless we are in the red for the next 6 to 12 months, these other two should both outperform JEPQ. It's a safer option. That's why it's so massive, 34 billion in AUM. People love it. Retirees love it because it is a lot more consistent, but I'm not looking for consistency, right? I want to be a millionaire one day. And JEPQ just might be a little bit too slow of a way to get me there, even though in the last couple of months, 6 months, it is the best performer of all of these because of the market pullback. And that's just, again, not the market going sideways. It's the market actually falling, which is what we've seen with tech and software specifically. So right now, I'm planning on doing QQQI and GPIQ. If you think I should only do one NASDAQ fund in this, let me know which one you would pick. I want QQQI or GPIQ or JEPQ. We can start a poll. Maybe I'll put something in the comments. Let me know what you think, because I mean, it's not really a democracy, but your votes will matter and will have an impact on what I do put in this account. We have the 3 S&P funds plugged in, and it's going to be a similar thought process. I want to showcase the reason I'm using QQQI and SPYI is because the leverage versions have not been trading for long enough. So you can kind of expect a 1.5x better performance if they were out during this time. Now, that also means during the drop that they would be beaten up quite a bit more. Looking at the 1-year total return, SPYI is the best performer, 12.88% in the green, GPIX 12.5, and JEPI a little under 8. So there's a much bigger spread between the S&P funds than there is the NASDAQ funds, which is why I'm probably not going to put JEPI. Same thing with the last ones, though. If you think I should put one S&P fund and shift and put something else in here, let me know. But right now I'm leaning for both SPYI or XSPI, the leverage version, and GPIX going in. I want to see I also want to see how a 1.5x leverage competes with an unleveraged ETF, because it would be really interesting to track this and say, oh, in the upside, this one was booming, this one wasn't, and vice versa. If we had more red months than green months, did GPIX win, or did XSPI, was it able to produce enough income to offset the drops, and so on? And that's kind of the reason I'm okay with choosing both of these, because we're not going to have two that are trading almost the exact same way, the way that these two funds have been. So now we're going to check in with some riskier assets, and I'm curious what you guys think. BTCI and NEHI. In the portfolio, again, I guess I could do BTCI and not do a leveraged Bitcoin fund. That actually is a really good point. Do you guys think I should do XBCI or BTCI? Because maybe I shouldn't leverage Bitcoin with what it's at right now. The bright side of this is XBCI yields like 40-something%. But if Bitcoin drops, it's going to be bludgeoned. Now, what we're looking at, again, is the total return. NEHI is the Ethereum fund. It hasn't been out for very long. And we can see BTCI, total return-wise, is down 26% compared to NEHI, down 35%. If we flip this to price return, though, you'll see it's pretty ugly. Bitcoin actually underperforms. But again, it pays out such a high yield that total return cuts, you add another 18% to your returns. Now, I'm happy to have both of these in. I think NEHI is one of the best ETH ETFs, and that produces income, I should say. And XBCI or BTCI, I'm happy with either of those. Maybe having BTCI would help me sleep a little bit better, but I also am okay because Bitcoin is at a pretty low price right now. I'd have to get into Bitcoin around 60,000 with XBCI, and even then it could fall to 40, which would hurt, because that would be what, a 30% drop if I was using the 1.5x leveraged version. I don't know how people trade with leverage all the time. It freaks me out. It really does freak me out. I can't do these 2x, 3x's like all these people do, and I'm too worried about blowing up my account completely. So let's jump into our next set of ETFs. Now, there's 3 more NEOS ETFs that I am pretty set on putting in the portfolio somehow. MLPI is a definite yes. I love this one. Good yield, good AUM, 200 million, still pretty new, but energy and the market aren't necessarily tied together. So they can trend very differently, and that's why I like MLPI. NIHI is kind of the same reason, right? These are international holdings that are still producing income, and on top of that, they're writing calls on the portfolio. So I want this one in there as well, but I don't know where I'm going to fit it in. I really don't, because that would be 11 compared to what I actually have so far. But we'll get to that. Then we have IWMI. And the reason I want this one in there is, one, Russell, different underlying than what we're looking at. And I think this might be like the unsung hero of NEOS. People don't talk about it. I've only made like one video on it, so I'm talking about myself as well. But it's been bouncing back really nicely. And I'm guessing we are going to go into a lower interest rate environment. I think they're going to keep cutting them for any number of reasons. We could probably talk about that for an hour, but I won't bore you. I think that IWMI could continue to shine during this time period. So I like all 3 of these to go in there. Now, they've been trading for different times. Price return wise, MLPI is looking pretty good despite being super new. And if we put in the distributions, it's already up 14%, started trading in December. Yeah. Looking at NIHI, this one is already up 11.5%, started trading in September, and IWMI is up 18.18%, which is very, very solid. If we threw on here like JEPQ, QQQI, SPYI, GIPQ, you would see IWMI has kind of overtaken those recently, which is very, very interesting. Very, very interesting indeed. So all these I think would be a good addition. Again, you know what I'm going to say. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know how you feel, if this is something that would be entertaining for you. One thing I really don't want to have like 3 NASDAQ and 3 S&P funds and then 4 just like whatevers and just track which S&P funds are doing the best. No, I want it to be a diversified portfolio. I want to see the dividends. I want to see what money can be made with $10,000 invested. and how growth is impacting what's going on, how the market is transitioning to something different, and what that does to these underlyings. I think that'd be really helpful. That's basically what I'm doing, is I'm making content that I would want to watch. That's kind of how I'm framing this, because I think it'd be very entertaining and educational to see which funds are doing what and to keep track. So we're going to check out our final 2 ETFs that are potentials for this portfolio, and I need to know what you think. I added in IAUI. I just want to see the comparison. I don't, if I'm leaning towards kicking one of these out, I'm probably going to kick gold out, because I do have a lot of gold in my portfolio already. And it's just not as volatile, right? So we have KGLD, KSLV, both funds by Curve, and we have IAUI by NEOS, which again, we have 2 gold, 1 silver. When we scroll down, we look at the 1 year. All of these are not even a year old, which is so interesting. I thought IAUI was older than this. And just on price movement, IAUI is the worst. It's up 22% compared to KSLV's 51 and KGLD's 43. Now, one thing with all of these, I'm not sure how IAUI would react, but KSLV and KGLD are only up because they have a lot more exposure to the price of their underlying of gold and silver. When we tie in the distributions, KSLV, man, K Gold has done so well also. That's wild. KSLV's up almost 66%, KGLD 53%, and IAUI still commendable 34.6%, because it is producing, I think it probably has a higher yield. Let's check. No, it doesn't. Holy smokes. It does have more than K Gold. So what happens is the trade-off is if they're leaving some of the portfolio out of the options. So I shouldn't say out of the options. What they're doing is they're not doing a full options run on the full portfolio to give more exposure to gold. So when gold is running, you can write less options and thus have more of that price exposure. IAUI is probably yielding higher because they're still using more of the portfolio in comparison to KGLD. Now, I think silver would be interesting to throw in here. I also think gold would be too, but I'd probably rather do international in comparison to gold, or we could cut like GIPQ or one of the other options that we talked about. I know some people think IWMI is really boring and they don't want it in there, but I think international, gold, silver, I think it would be fun to track all of these and how they perform. So if you're interested in this style of content, guys, again, don't forget to like and subscribe. If we get to 1,000 likes, I'll be throwing the money into here and we'll start tracking it ASAP, probably doing 2 videos every single month. And again, if you want to follow this journey of building a high income, no NAV erosion portfolio, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you guys so much. I hope you did enjoy this video.